I used to think running a family business meant loyalty was guaranteed. My parents handed me the management of our small event planning company 2 years ago. I threw myself into it completely. Late nights, picking up last-minute cancellations, dealing with impossible clients and budget disasters. It was exhausting, but I loved every moment of it. My wife at the time, Ava, handled our social media accounts. My younger cousin, Liam, helped with logistics and venue coordination. We were a team, or at least that's what I believed. We operated out of a small office in downtown Portland. The walls were covered with photos from successful weddings and corporate events we planned. My parents had started this business 30 years ago with nothing but determination and a borrowed van. Now we had 12 employees and a reputation for making impossible events happen. Ava had been with me for 6 years. We'd met at a friend's wedding that I planned. She told me she loved how I made everything perfect for people on their special day. 6 months later, we were married. 2 years after that, she was working beside me every day. I trusted her completely. With passwords, invoices, client communications, everything. She was my wife, my partner in life and business. That trust almost destroyed everything. Business was booming that spring. We had 12 weddings booked to the summer season, plus 3 major corporate events. Our calendar was packed. Money was flowing in faster than it ever had before. I was happy. Tired, but happy. Then little things started going wrong. Small things at first. Things I could brush off as mistakes or technical glitches. One Tuesday morning, a client named Mrs. Whitfield emailed me furiously. She claimed I had canceled her daughter's wedding booking without explanation. Her email was 3 paragraphs of anger and confusion. She'd already put down a deposit of $8,000. I rushed to check our system immediately. The cancellation had been entered under my username. The timestamp showed it happened on a Saturday 2 weeks earlier. But I hadn't been in the office that Saturday. I'd been at a vendor convention in Seattle, 4 hours away. I had receipts, photos, everything proving I wasn't anywhere near our office. Probably just a system glitch, Ava said when I showed her. She didn't even look up from her phone. These things happen with booking software. I called Mrs. Whitfield and explained the mistake. Apologized repeatedly. Promised it wouldn't happen again. She reluctantly agreed to continue with us, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. I brushed it off as a technical error and moved on. I had too much work to worry about random glitches. A week later, something strange happened at a venue meeting. I arrived at the Riverside Gardens to discuss setup for an upcoming anniversary party. 2 coordinators I'd worked with for years were standing near the entrance, whispering. When they saw me, they went quiet immediately. Their faces changed. Uncomfortable. Awkward. I heard one of them say softly, "He forgets everything now. Shame, he used to be so sharp." My stomach dropped. I walked over and asked what they meant. They both looked at each other nervously. "Oh, nothing," the taller one said quickly. "Just talking about a different planner." But I knew they were talking about me. I could see it in their faces. "If there's a problem with my work, I'd like to know," I said carefully. They shook their heads and changed the subject fast. Too fast. Like they'd been caught saying something they shouldn't. I left that meeting feeling confused and slightly sick. What were they talking about? I hadn't forgotten anything. I kept detailed notes on every event. My organizational system was flawless. Later that night, I mentioned it to Ava. She barely looked up from her laptop. "You're probably just being paranoid," she said. "People gossip. Don't let it get to you." I tried to let it go, but the feeling stayed with me like a shadow. Then shifts started changing without explanation. I'd show up to events and find that I'd been removed from the schedule. Clients I had personally secured and worked with for months were suddenly assigned to Ava or Liam instead. The first time it happened was at the Henderson wedding. I'd spent 3 months planning every detail with the bride. We'd become friendly. She specifically requested me as the lead coordinator. When I arrived at the venue that Saturday morning, Ava was already there directing the setup crew. The bride looked confused when she saw me. "I thought Ava was handling everything today," she said hesitantly. "No, I'm your coordinator," I replied, equally confused. Ava walked over with a tight smile. There was a schedule change. I sent you an email last night. Communication error, I guess. I checked my phone. No email. Nothing in my spam folder either. We're fine here, Ava said firmly. You can head to the office and work on next week's bookings. I stood there feeling useless and dismissed. In front of my client. In front of my crew. I left without arguing, but anger burned in my chest. This wasn't a communication error. This was deliberate. When I confronted Liam later, he just shrugged and said the same thing. Communication error, man. These things happen. But they were both smiling. Quick. False smiles that didn't reach their eyes. A rumor started spreading through our vendor network like wildfire. Someone was telling people I was having panic attacks during events, that I couldn't be trusted under pressure, that I was mentally unstable. I first heard about it from our florist, Beatrice. She'd been working with my family's company for 15 years. We were practically friends. She called me one afternoon, her voice careful and concerned. Hey, I heard you've been struggling lately. Are you okay? Struggling with what? Your anxiety, the panic attacks. Someone said you had a breakdown at the Morrison corporate gala. My blood went cold. Beatrice, I never had a breakdown. I don't have panic attacks during events. Who told you that? Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, Ava mentioned it to several of us. She said she was worried about you. I hung up and sat in my car for 20 minutes, gripping the steering wheel. Yes, I'd once mentioned to Ava that I struggle with anxiety after particularly stressful weeks. Everyone in event planning dealt with stress. It was part of the job. But I'd never had a breakdown, never panicked during an event, never lost control. She was weaponizing my private confession, turning it into a narrative that made me look incompetent. Suddenly, vendors started avoiding me. Invitations to networking mixers stopped coming. Our photographer, who'd worked exclusively with us for 3 years, started returning my calls 2 days late. Our preferred caterer switched to working with a competitor. When I asked why, he gave me a vague answer about scheduling conflicts. Then our florist, Beatrice, blocked me on Instagram. No explanation. Just gone. I tried to figure out what was happening. I reached out to several vendors asking if I'd done something wrong. Most ignored me completely. 2 replied with short, cold messages saying they were moving in a different direction professionally. One venue coordinator I'd known for years finally told me the truth over coffee. She looked uncomfortable the entire time. People are saying you're unreliable, she admitted quietly, that you're having personal problems and it's affecting your work quality. Who's saying that? She wouldn't tell me, but I already knew. Ava was systematically destroying my professional reputation. She was spreading lies, planting doubt, poisoning relationships I'd built over years of hard work. And she was doing it so carefully that I couldn't prove anything. It was all whispers and rumors. Nothing concrete. Nothing I could confront her about without sounding paranoid. I felt like I was going crazy. I confronted Ava in our kitchen one night. I'd been holding it in for weeks, but I couldn't anymore. Are you telling people I can't handle events? I asked directly. She was loading the dishwasher, her back to me. She paused for just a second, then continued like I hadn't spoken. People talk, she finally said with a shrug. Maybe you are overwhelmed. You've been working a lot. I'm not overwhelmed. I'm doing my job. The same job I've always done. She turned around and looked at me with something cold in her eyes. Maybe that's a problem. Maybe your job is too much for you now. What's that supposed to mean? It means maybe you should take a break. Step back for a while. Let me and Liam handle the major events. My hands were shaking. This is my family's company. My parents trusted me to run it. And you're running it into the ground, she said flatly. Clients are complaining. Vendors don't want to work with you. Maybe it's time to admit you're not cut out for this anymore. She walked out of the kitchen before I could respond. I stood there alone, feeling like the walls were closing in. We had payroll to meet, deadlines approaching, bookings to coordinate. I swallowed my anger and went back to work. The breaking point came during the Castellano wedding. It was our biggest event of the season. A 300-person wedding at the most expensive venue in the city. Everything had to be perfect. Everything went wrong. The flowers were completely wrong. The bride had ordered white roses and peonies. We got red carnations and daisies instead. The linens were the wrong color. The musicians showed up at the wrong venue entirely. They were 40 minutes away when they were supposed to be setting up. The bride was hysterical. Her mother was screaming. The groom's family was demanding refunds. And I had no idea what happened. I checked every detail 3 times. I confirmed with vendors the day before. Everything was supposed to be perfect. Ava and Liam were supposed to be handling the setup. But when I arrived, they were nowhere to be found. I spent 3 hours putting out fires, calling backup vendors, apologizing to everyone. The wedding happened, but barely. It was a disaster. Afterward, the bride screamed at me in the parking lot. Her face was red, tears streaming down her cheeks. You ruined my wedding. You ruined the most important day of my life. I couldn't even defend myself. Because somehow it was my fault. I was the lead planner on the contract. I demanded a meeting the next morning. We sat in the office conference room. Me across from Ava and Liam. Liam looked guilty, his eyes down. Ava looked bored, checking her phone every few seconds. The Castellano wedding was a complete failure. I started. Someone didn't confirm the vendors properly. Someone entered the wrong addresses in the system. What happened? Ava set down her phone and looked at me with cold eyes. You're losing your touch. That's what happened. I confirmed everything personally. Then you confirmed wrong, she said simply. Clients want reliability. You're not reliable anymore. That's not true. The Castellano bride is already spreading word about how incompetent you are. Our reputation is damaged because of you. Liam finally spoke up. Maybe we should redistribute some responsibilities. Take pressure off you. I looked between them. Something was happening here. Something coordinated. Maybe we should hire external help, I suggested. Someone objective who can... Maybe you should step back, Ava interrupted. Let me and Liam run the major events. You can handle administrative work, invoices, scheduling, stuff that doesn't require client interaction. She said it so casually, like she was suggesting I take a vacation, not demoting me from my own family's business. I left that meeting with nothing solved, and everything worse. 2 nights later, I was working late in the office. Everyone else had gone home. Our laser printer jammed while I was printing contracts for an upcoming event. I knelt down and opened the paper tray to clear it. A sheet was stuck inside, crumpled and jammed in the rollers. I pulled it out carefully and smoothed it flat. It was an email thread, printed out, probably by accident. The subject line read, Transition Plan. My hands went numb as I read. The email was between Ava and Liam. It was dated 3 months earlier. Ava, we need to start reassigning his clients. Make it look natural. Communication errors. Scheduling conflicts. Nothing obvious. Liam, what about the vendors? Ava, I'll handle them. Just need to plant some concerns. Say he's been unstable. Overwhelmed. People will believe it. Liam, and after? Ava, once his reputation is damaged enough, we position ourselves as the reliable ones. I take over client relations exclusively. You handle logistics. We phase him out completely. Liam, what about his parents? Ava, they'll see his failures themselves. They'll agree he needs to step down. The email continued. They discussed registering their own event planning, LLC, using our client list, stealing our vendor relationships, taking everything my family had built. My vision blurred. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the paper. I didn't confront them immediately. I wanted to walk into our bedroom and scream at Ava. Demand answers. Throw her out. But I'd learned something. Rage without evidence gets you nowhere. Instead, I went home and acted normal. I ate dinner, watched television, went to bed. Ava didn't suspect anything. The next morning, I went to the office early. Before anyone else arrived, I pulled the export logs from our booking software. Every action taken in the system was time-stamped and tracked by username. I went back 3 months. Every mistake I'd been blamed for had actually been entered by Ava. The canceled booking, the wrong addresses, the missed confirmations. All of it was traceable to her login credentials. She'd use my saved passwords to access my account and make it look like I was failing. But the timestamps didn't lie. Every action was taken from her laptop's IP address when I wasn't even in the building. I downloaded everything, printed copies, saved files to 3 different drives. Then I started making phone calls. I contacted 3 of our major vendors, the ones who'd stopped working with us. I was careful, gentle, non-confrontational. I'm reaching out because I value our working relationship, I said. If there's been a problem with my performance, I'd like to know so I can fix it. The first 2 wouldn't tell me anything. They gave vague excuses and hung up quickly. The third, Marcus from Riverside Gardens, was more honest. We'd worked together for 5 years. He'd always respected me. "Look, man, I like you," he said quietly. "But Ava reached out a few months ago. She said you were burned out, that you'd been making dangerous mistakes under pressure. She asked us to start working with her directly instead." Dangerous? My voice cracked. "Marcus, have I ever made a dangerous mistake?" Silence. Then, "No, you haven't." That's why I felt weird about it. But she was very convincing. "She lied to you." I'm starting to think that. I thanked him and hung up. That one word, dangerous, stuck in my head. She'd told vendors I was dangerous, like I was a threat. That wasn't just sabotage. That was character assassination. Then something unexpected happened. A gift from the universe, or karma, or whatever you want to call it. The bride from the Castellano disaster wedding emailed me. Mrs. Castellano, the one who'd screamed at me in the parking lot. Subject line, "I owe you an apology." I opened it with shaking hands. I was going through my phone and found a group chat from the week before my wedding. I'd added Ava and Liam to it so they could coordinate with my bridesmaids. They didn't realize I could still see their messages. I have screenshots of them mocking my decor choices, calling my ideas tacky, laughing about how easy it would be to mess up the setup to prove a point about who should really be running events. I am horrified. I blamed you for everything when it was them sabotaging me deliberately. I'm so sorry. If you need these screenshots for anything, I will gladly provide them. I read the email 3 times. Then I called her. She was crying, apologizing over and over. She sent me the screenshots immediately. They were damning. Ava and Liam had deliberately destroyed that wedding to make me look incompetent. They'd bragged about it. Now I had everything I needed. I spent the next 2 days gathering every piece of evidence I could find. I organized it into a folder, printed copies, made digital backups, the email thread about the transition plan, the booking software logs showing Ava's deliberate sabotage, screenshots from Mrs. Castellano showing the intentional destruction of her wedding, Marcus's testimony about Ava's lies to vendors. I had a case, a solid, undeniable case. My parents were still technically owners of the business. I'd been managing it, but they held majority shares. I needed them to see this. I called them and asked them to come to the office for an important meeting. I didn't explain why, just asked them to trust me. They arrived Tuesday morning. Mom looked worried. Dad looked confused. I asked them to sit down in the conference room. Then I called Ava and Liam in. "We need to talk," I said calmly. Ava walked in looking annoyed. "I have a client meeting in an hour." "Cancel it." She rolled her eyes but sat down. Liam followed, looking nervous. I slid the folder across the table to my parents. "I need you to read this." "All of it." My parents read in silence. I watched their faces change. Confusion turned to shock. Shock turned to anger. Ava kept checking her phone, pretending to be unbothered. When my dad finished reading, he looked up at her. His voice was quiet, controlled, dangerous. "Did you deliberately sabotage our client's events?" "This is ridiculous," Ava said, waving her hand dismissively. "Those could be fake. Screenshots can be edited. These are from our own booking system." My mother said, her voice sharp, time-stamped, verified. Ava's face changed, just slightly. The first crack in her armor. You need to understand, she started. I was trying to protect the business. He's been struggling. You were stealing, my father interrupted. You were sabotaging events, lying to vendors, destroying our reputation. Then my dad cleared his throat and looked directly at Ava. Marcus from Riverside Gardens sent us the same evidence yesterday. He felt guilty and reached out. The color drained from Ava's face completely. My mother turned to Liam. And you? What's your excuse? Liam looked down at the table. His voice was barely a whisper. We want to control. He was in the way. Just like that, they admitted everything. My parents didn't yell. They didn't scream. They just acted. My father pulled out his phone and made 3 calls. First to our lawyer, second to our accountant, third to our IT company. Within an hour, Ava and Liam's access to all company accounts was terminated. Email, booking software, social media, bank accounts, everything. Their keys to the office were confiscated. Their company credit cards were canceled. Their employment was terminated immediately. Ava tried to argue. You can't do this. I have rights. I'll sue. Sue us, my mother said coldly. We'll see you in court with all of this evidence. I'd love to explain to a judge how you sabotage weddings to frame your husband. Ava grabbed her purse and stormed out. But before she left, she turned back and looked at me with pure hatred. You'll regret this, she hissed. I regret marrying you. I replied quietly. That's the only regret I have. The door slammed behind her. Liam followed without another word. My parents and I sat in the silent conference room. My mother reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm sorry we didn't see this sooner, she said softly. I didn't see it either, I admitted, not until it was almost too late. Word spread fast through the vendor network. Not because I told anyone. I didn't have to. Mrs. Castellano, the bride from the sabotaged wedding, posted a detailed review on every wedding platform. She included screenshots of Ava and Liam's messages. She named them specifically. These people intentionally ruined my wedding to advance their own agenda. They sabotaged vendors, lied to staff, and destroyed what should have been the happiest day of my life. Avoid them at all costs. Other clients started coming forward with similar stories, things that had gone wrong that they'd blamed on our company. Now they realized it was specific people, not the business itself. Vendors who had dropped me started reaching out with quiet apologies. Marcus called me personally. I should have trusted my gut, he said. You've never given me a reason to doubt you. I'm sorry. I appreciate that, I told him. Can we work together again? Absolutely. One by one, relationships were rebuilt. Beatrice, our florist, sent me a long apology email explaining that Ava had told her I'd spoken badly about her work. She unblocked me on Instagram and called to apologize. The truth was spreading faster than the lies had. Ava tried to launch her competing event planning company 3 weeks later. She'd registered the LLC months earlier, just like the email said she would. She called it Elevation Events. She used photos from weddings we planned together, cropping me out. She listed herself as founder and CEO. She sent out a mass email to our entire client list advertising her new company, promising professional, reliable service from people who truly care. It backfired spectacularly. Multiple clients forwarded the email to me with messages like, "Can you believe this? And what is she thinking?" One client replied directly to Ava's email with, "We know what you did to the Castellano wedding. You're not getting near any event of ours." Her social media pages were flooded with negative comments. Former clients, vendors who'd figured out the truth, people warning others to stay away. The wedding community is small. People talk. Reputations matter. And Ava's reputation was destroyed before her company even got started. She shut down Elevation Events after 2 months. 0 clients. 0 bookings. Complete failure. Liam tried to get work with other event companies in Portland. He applied to 6 different places. Every single one called me for a reference check. I was honest with them. I explained what he'd done. The sabotage. The lies. The deliberate destruction of client events. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't need to. The truth was damning enough. No one hired him. Last I heard, he'd moved out of Portland entirely. Someone told me he was working warehouse shifts somewhere in Idaho. I didn't ask for details. I didn't care. He'd made his choices. Now, he was living with the consequences. I felt no guilt about it. He'd tried to destroy me. He'd tried to steal from my family. He deliberately hurt innocent clients to advance his own agenda. Some people deserve second chances. Liam wasn't one of them. My only regret was not seeing it sooner, not recognizing the signs before it got so bad. But I'd learned my lesson. Trust slowly. Verify always. Keep your passwords private. The divorce process was surprisingly quick. Ava's lawyer tried to negotiate for a share of the business. My lawyer shut that down immediately. We presented all the evidence of her sabotage, her deliberate attempts to damage the company, her theft of client information and vendor relationships. Her lawyer advised her to settle quickly before we filed criminal charges for fraud and theft. She signed over any claim to the business, walked away with nothing except what she'd brought into the marriage, which wasn't much. The papers were finalized in 4 months. I was free. The day the divorce was official, I went to my parents' house for dinner. My mom made my favorite meal. My dad opened an expensive bottle of wine he'd been saving. To new beginnings, he said, raising his glass. We clinked glasses. I felt lighter than I had in months. Like a weight I didn't know I was carrying had finally been lifted. Are you okay? My mom asked gently. I'm better than okay. I said honestly. I'm free. The first event I coordinated solo after everything happened was the Morrison anniversary party. 50 years of marriage, 200 guests, a celebration of lasting love. I arrived at the venue early and personally checked every detail. The flowers were perfect. The musicians were on time. The catering staff knew exactly where to set up. Everything went smoothly, flawlessly, like it used before the sabotage. Mrs. Morrison hugged me at the end of the night with tears in her eyes. This was perfect. Thank you for making our anniversary so special. I smiled. That's what I do. As I was packing up, loading the last of our supplies into the van, one of the venue coordinators approached me. The same woman who'd been whispering about me months earlier. Can I talk to you for a second? She asked nervously. Sure. I owe you an apology. Ava told me things about you that weren't true. I believed her. I'm sorry. It's okay, I said. And surprisingly, I meant it. You didn't know. How did you keep going? When everyone was turning on you. I thought about it. I knew the truth. Eventually, the truth always comes out. She nodded and walked away. I finished packing and drove home feeling satisfied in a way I hadn't felt in a very long time. People started inviting me to networking mixers again. The vendor community welcomed me back like nothing had happened. Or maybe like everything had happened, and they understood now. I rebuilt relationships, reconnected with vendors, started booking new clients. Our company's reputation recovered faster than I expected. Maybe because people saw that we dealt with the problem directly. We hadn't hidden it or made excuses. We'd acknowledged what happened and fixed it. 3 months after Ava left, we booked more events than we had in the previous 6 months. My parents officially retired and handed me full ownership of the company. You've earned it, my dad said. You protected what we built. It's yours now. I hired new staff, people I vetted carefully, people who share my values, people who understood that loyalty isn't just a word, it's a commitment. I implemented new systems, better security protocols, regular audits, transparency in every department. No one would be able to sabotage us again. Not like that. Not ever. I ran into Ava once, about 8 months after the divorce. I was picking up coffee downtown. She was coming out of a different coffee shop across the street. Our eyes met. She looked different, tired, defeated. She started to walk toward me. I thought about leaving, running, avoiding the confrontation. But I didn't. I stood there and waited. How are you? She asked when she reached me. Her voice was quiet, almost sad. I'm good, I said honestly. Really good. The business? Thriving. She nodded slowly. I heard. We stood there in awkward silence. People walked past us on the busy sidewalk. I'm sorry, she finally said. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I realized I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel hatred. I just felt nothing. I hope you figure things out, I said, and I meant it. She nodded and walked away. I watched her go, then turned and went into the coffee shop. That was the closure I needed. Not dramatic, not explosive, just done. A year after everything happened, I was coordinating the biggest wedding of my career. 400 guests, waterfront venue, live orchestra, ice sculptures, the works. Everything was perfect. Every detail exactly as planned. The bride cried happy tears when she saw the ceremony setup. The groom shook my hand and said, "You made our dreams come true." As I stood in the back watching the ceremony, I thought about the journey that led me here. The betrayal, the pain, the fight to save everything I'd worked for. Sometimes betrayal doesn't show up as obvious enemies. Sometimes it's whispers, conveniently missed emails, concerns about your well-being that mask malicious intent. I'd ignored the small cracks because I assumed loyalty came with marriage vows and family ties. I'd trusted blindly because I wanted to believe the best in people. Now I trusted differently, carefully, with evidence and verification. I kept my passwords private. I delegated intentionally. I watched for patterns instead of believing excuses. Not because I was paranoid, because I was smart. The reception started. Music filled the air. Guests laughed and danced. The bride and groom looked blissfully happy. This was what I did. I created perfect moments for people. I made dreams come true. And no one could take that from me ever again. My business is thriving now, better than it ever was. We have 23 employees. We're booked solid for the next 18 months. Vendors fight to work with us. Clients refer their friends and family. Last month, a major wedding magazine featured us in an article about Portland's top event planners. They called me a master of making magic happen. My parents framed the article and hung it in their living room. I still work long hours. I still deal with difficult clients and last-minute disasters. But I love it because it's mine, built on truth and hard work and real relationships. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I hadn't found that printed email, if I had kept ignoring signs, if I let Ava and Liam push me out completely. But I did find it. I did fight back. I did protect what mattered. Looking back now, I realize that betrayal taught me something valuable. It taught me that loyalty isn't automatic. Trust must be earned. And sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you the worst. But it also taught me that truth is powerful. Evidence matters. Standing up for yourself, even when everyone seems to be against you, is worth it. I keep my passwords private now. I trust slowly. I verify constantly. I build walls that protect without isolating. And my business? It's never been healthier. Turns out, when the smoke clears and the truth comes out, what you build on solid ground can be burned down. Not by lies, not by betrayal, not by anyone. The truth builds better walls than any fire ever could, and I'm standing strong behind mine. So I would like to ask you a lot of questions if you paid attention to my story. So the question is, what is my name and where are you watching from? Write in the comments section, and I promise to reply to all the comments.